Vyakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sakshadharitvena Samasta Shastrair Uktastatha Bhavyata Eva Sadbhi Kintuh Prabhoryah Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutoapi ध्यायन्स्तुमस्तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दं नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत् सर्वेभ्यो नमस्काराः सर्वेषां कृते स्वागतम् to do a quick recap of where we are in the last session we talked about stuti. There we heard about how the Devas, headed by Sri Brahma, Shiva, several great sages, they appeared in the prison room where Devaki and Vasudeva were residing, and they offered their stuti to Krishna present in Devaki's womb. We discussed about what is meant by stuti, why is it done. Stuti is not about going to Bhagavan when there is trouble. It's about approaching him even when there is no trouble, when there is no apparent reason to approach him. The reason being simply inspiration. So stuti is as a means to converse and connect deeply with God or Bhagavan. We acknowledge his nature, qualities, activities. We contemplate on them through the process of stuti. And we express our appreciation, gratitude, etc. in a very genuine manner. And by doing that, it reinforces the relationship between ourselves and him. And he accepts stuti. It's not because he is looking for our praise. He doesn't need our praise, but he accepts it because it benefits us immensely. Stuti uplifts us. It takes us out of all the pessimism, negativity. It fills our life with positive energy. It gives us so much positivity as we do stuti. That is why it's so important. It makes us strong, resilient. It gives us wisdom. It calms our mind. So we see even so many great people today, uh, they do meditation and they meditate upon God in different ways in their own understanding of God. So stuti is a form of meditation on God with full awareness of his qualities, his character, and drawing inspiration from that to be like that ourselves. So stuti, therefore, is not an act of helplessness. It is not pleading to God to please help oneself, but it is actually a method or methodology to uplift oneself. And we also heard about how to practice stuti. We can integrate very easily by Shravanam, Kirtanam, especially japa, the silent chanting and reciting of his names with systematic counting is also very powerful. And living a very sattvic life is essential for the success of stuti. So we heard all this in the last class. Going forward, let's look at this question. What emotions did we experience or do we experience when we hear that someone that we like very much, we adore very much, or we deeply respect will shortly visit our home or locality? I personally recollect when I was a child, there would be numerous occasions when I get the news from my mother or father that some uncle is going to visit, or some aunt, or my grandmother is going to visit. And I know because in my past experience with them, they bring always some gifts and they talk very sweetly. When they come, then there is a whole family goes. We go out for some picnic somewhere. There's a very good experience whenever somebody comes, and they give us so much happiness. This is with relatives, but suppose it's not a relative, but let's say somebody whom we respect very highly. Let's say, for example, we hear that the President of India is going to come to our campus or our office and inaugurate something. Okay, we get this news sometimes. I've had this a couple of times in my career where I was working. The President of India appeared there. Once it was President Shankar Dayal Sharma. This was in the year 1997. And then subsequently it was President Pratibha Patil in the year 2009, I think. So on both these occasions, I remember the place where I was working was full of excitement, and the excitement began nearly 20 days earlier, maybe 3 weeks earlier. So much preparation was done. Big checklists were made. Everybody was called. So many meetings were held as to what to do when the president arrives, and what kind of events will happen, the security measures, who will actually go and shake hands with the president, what will each person do, what will be each person's role, where will they stand. Every small detail was worked out on both these occasions. It was not, and they were in two different organizations. I was in two different places. Once I was in Bangalore the first time, and the second time was in Manipal, when I was working in Manipal. And subsequent to that, there was an occasion when a former president, President APJ Abdul Kalam, came to a convocation, and I was a part of that convocation. And he was, although not a president at that point of time, he was treated like a president because he was a very respected personality anyway. So the amount of joy, excitement, happiness, and looking forward, the anticipation that comes to that event, even though that personality, like a president of India, is going to stay there for only a very short time, maybe 30 minutes or half an hour, or maybe 45 minutes, not more than that. But even then, so many weeks of preparation, goes before it. So just think, what happens when this happens. This ordinary, actually, they are like human beings like us. But we do so much when they come, we feel so happy. So this reaction carries forward when we think about God Himself arriving. You see, when Sri Bhagavan was in the womb of Devaki, in the last class, we saw how the Devas came because there was excitement in the universe. The entire universe came to know that He is going to come. The word spread, okay, beginning with the Devas, because they were the ones who actually went and prayed to Him. And it is not necessary that every time they pray to Him, He will Himself appear, because He's a great personality, right? So He is beyond, well beyond them. But now He decided to appear. And because He decided to appear, they were so excited. There was so much happiness everywhere. And that word of mouth spread everywhere, not only with the devas who reside in Swarga, but with all the beings everywhere around, the great sages and so many deities. You see, everything in this universe, every natural object has got a deity associated with it. And that is what is discussed in our knowledge system. It is not, so when we say that, for example, Ganga, we talk about Ganga, we know that Ganga is a river. When we refer to Ganga, we talk about Ganga as a river. River is a water body, water flowing there. But we also talk about a person called Ganga, right? And we say Ganga Ma. So is it just a personification of some non-living thing? No, it's not that. It is that there is a deity, there is a person, there is a Jivatma. There is a Jivatma, sometimes Vishnu himself. But generally speaking, a Jivatma who presides over that object, that Ganga, for example, that river. That that personality is a divine personality. It does not have a body, a material body like us, or has a body, material body, but that body is superior to the kind of body that we have. It is similar to the body that the devas have. It's made of a different substance. As a result, we cannot see that body with our eyes. So Ganga, the person, is not visible to us. Only the river that she presides over, that is visible to us. Okay, similarly, when we say Himalaya, we talk about a person called Himalaya. And it's not just a abstract personification of an object. It is actually a person, a living being. A living being exists somewhere whom we cannot see. And that living being has the charge of taking care of that particular object until some point of time, until that person is replaced by somebody else. Similarly, we hear about lakes, sometimes big banyan trees, different objects having their presiding deities. So all these deities also came to know. It is not only the devas like Brahma and Shiva and the sages like Narada who came to Devaki's chamber and were praying to the Krishna within her. But even these deities all over the universe came to know that Sri Bhagavan himself, Vishnu, Krishna himself is going to appear. So how did they react? So we will read that today in the next few shlokas. This is the third chapter of the Dashama skandha of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Shri Shuka Uvacha atha sarvagunopeta kalaf paramashobhanah yarhevajana janmarksham shantarkshagrahatarakam. So Sri Vyasadeva ji begins with description of how the cosmic, elements, the stars, the planets, and different constellations, how did they react? There are presiding deities for them too. So he says that now actually he's going to describe the time that Sri Bhagavan appeared and then eventually Sri Bhagavan's appearance itself. But he says in the build up to that time, all these things happened. And at that point of time, this is how the mood was. So the time that he appeared is governed by the nakshatra called Rohini. What is meant by a nakshatra? A nakshatra refers to not one star, but it refers to a group of stars. And more specifically, it's not just a group of stars, it's actually a region in the space. So the path which we take around the sun, it's called the orbit of the earth. And when it's projected onto the cosmic sphere, it's called the ecliptic. And on the ecliptic, you can divide the ecliptic, it consists of 360 degrees. It's a circular thing. It's actually not exactly a circle, some kind of a elliptical shape, but 360 degrees. One round means 360 degrees. Now, if you divide that into 27 portions, 360 by 27, equal portions, each portion is about 13 1 by 3 degrees. And this 13 1 by 3 degree portion is called a nakshatra. So there are 27 nakshatras, each space, which corresponds to one region of 13 1 by 3 degrees from the earth, as you see from the earth. That is one nakshatra. So Rohini is one such portion of the space, and that is the nakshatra Rohini. And there are stars which are present there. So that was the ruling nakshatra at the time of Sri Bhagavan's appearance. Now, what is meant by a ruling nakshatra? It means that when you see from the earth, the moon is in that, or in the background of the moon, or the moon is in the background of this nakshatra. It's in that space because the moon is continuously moving around the earth and the earth is continuously moving around the sun. So, what exactly is in the background of the moon, which particular nakshatra, that changes. Every day we have a different nakshatra, right? In roughly, on an average, about 25 hours, 24 to 25 hours, or maybe 26 hours, the nakshatra changes on an average. Actually, every nakshatra is not exactly same duration because these movements are not exactly, they go fast and slow and the angles keep changing. So, this was the governing nakshatra at the time of the birth of Brahma. Brahma is the foremost living being inside this universe. And he is the firstborn. When the universe is first created from the body of Mahavishnu, Brahma is the firstborn creature, living being. And from him, all the other living beings take birth, okay, or they become manifest. They all exist. It's not that the living being gets created. Living being has no creation. Living being is eternal. But it becomes manifest. Its consciousness becomes manifest after the universal creation. And that happens from Brahma's body. So Brahma's nakshatra also was Rohini. And it's described here, Yarhi eva ajana janma raksham. Raksham means nakshatra. Ajana janma. Ajana means Narayana, one who has no birth. Okay? Krishna is also described as Ajanma or Ajana. Ajana janma means one who came into existence, Brahma, from the one who has no birth. A poetic description. A person who is born from a person who has no birth. That is Brahma. And it's also described Shantarsha Grahatarakam. So this nakshatra Rohini is in the vicinity of other peaceful stars and planets. Okay, different stars and planets, different types of moods are associated with them. And Rohini is associated with peacefulness and joy. So the time that he appeared was endowed with all good qualities and was supremely attractive. Paramashobhanaha. Paramashobhanaha in the first line means that which was very, very attractive time. And when this time happened, then what happened? Dishav prasedur gaganam nirmalodu ganodayam mahi mangala bhuishthap puragrama vrajakara. So the directions, the 10 directions were feeling so happy, the deities of those directions. Gaganam, the deity of the sky, and in that sky, clusters of stars, very clear stars rose at that point of time. And the earth was filled with happiness. All the cities, Pura, Grama, Vraja means villages. Vraja means pastures, village pastures. Grama, small towns. Pura means cities. Mangala Bhuishta was filled with joy. Mangalam means joy, happiness, or it means also good fortune, auspiciousness. Good things happen. So such vibrations exist. So Mahi, the earth, was filled with all villages and towns and cities which were filled with joy, which means everybody was happy. They were feeling happiness inside. Nadyaf prasanna salila, Rada jalarhuha shriyah, Dvijalikula sannadastabaka vanarajayah. Nadyaha, the rivers, prasanna salilaha. Their waters were clear. Prasanna means very clear, very pure. They were carrying very pure, pleasing waters. And Hradaha, the lakes, Jalaruha Shreyaha, they are filled with beautiful lotuses. Jalaruha means a lotus flower. So Shriyaha, Shrihi means beauty. So beautiful lotuses filled the lakes. And Vanarajayaha, Vanarajihi means a row of trees or a path in a forest. Rajihi means a forest. Raji means a path or a way in a forest. Vanarajihi, Vanarajayaha. The paths in the forest were surrounded by trees, lots of forest trees, and these trees were filled with flowers. Stabakaha. Stabakaha means flower bunch of flowers, like the bouquet we give, no, like that. So bunches of flowers were adorning the trees, and these flowers were Dvijalikula Sannadaha, means they were, Sannadaha means the sounds or the din, the noise created by what? By the bees. The Ali means bee, and Dvija means birds. So Dvijalikula, the groups, there were lots of bees and birds. They were chirping around, and they were, very actively, very excitedly going into the trees where the flowers, where the bees were humming around the flowers and collecting nectar. So the mood everywhere was so good and so scenic. Anywhere you went, you could see beauty. You could see, something very natural and likable, something very likable. वावौ वायुः सुखस्पर्शः पुण्यगन्धवहः शुचिः अग्नयश्च द्विजातीनां शान्तास्तत्र समिन्धत. Vayuhu, the air, the breeze, vavau, blew, sukhasparshaha, with a very pleasing touch. Whomever it touched, the breeze, it made them feel very pleased. It was very pleasing to feel. The breeze was very pleasing to feel. It was neither too cold nor was it too hot. Okay. And Punyagandhavaha Shuchi, it carried fragrant smells. It carried very good fragrances. Its smell was very pleasant, very pleasing breeze was blowing in smell also, not just by touch, by temperature, but by also by its smell. And it was clean, there was no pollution in the air. Dvijatinam Agnayaha. Dvijatihi means the Brahmana or the person who does sacrifice. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, all three of them are called Dvijas. Dvija means one who has a second birth, who is given the Upanayana Sanskar. So, Dvijatinam Agnayaha, the Brahmanas who were conducting the great yajnas. Yajna means the fire sacrifice here. Shantaha Tatra Samindata. They had actually been extinguished, means because Kamsa was ruling, and Kamsa was actually, because he knew that somebody going to kill him is going to come, and he suspected it would be Vishnu. So anything which favored Vishnu, like performance of yajna, worship in that Vishnu temples, so everything he stopped. And he created terror that if I see anybody doing yajna, I'll chop off their head, something like that. So all those things had become quiet, or they were done secretly. But now, knowing that Sri Bhagavan is about to appear, when the news had spread, they lost fear. They knew that things will now become good. So the fires again lit up. Shantaha means they had become subdued, but now Samindhata means they lit up. They all came back to life. Manam syasan prasannani sadhunam asuradruham jayamane jane tasmin nedur dundhabhayo divi. So the mind of the saintly people, sadhunam, of the sadhus, manansi, the minds, prasannani asan, they were very pleased, they were very calm, and they became very quiet and uh, experienced a lot of uh, control. They were very calm. So they knew that in a very short time, what the trouble that they are going through, Asuradruham, the Asuras, Kamsa and his people who had been troubling them, they knew that in a short while this would be addressed. So their minds became very calm and they felt very good. They started feeling good. Acha lagta hai, we say in Hindi, right? Jayamane ajane tasmin. At the time that ajana means Krishna, one who has no birth, ajanaha. Jayamane, at the time that he was to be born, a sound of drums could be heard from the heavenly sphere. Divi, in Divi means in Swarga, in Swarga Loka, Dundubayaha Neduhu, drums started sounding. Okay, just when we hear a great personality is come, everybody gets ready, they all stand and they start playing some music to welcome that person. So drums started beating in Swargaloka when they knew that just now, in just a few moments, he's going to appear. Jaguk kinnara gandharvaha tushtuhu siddhacharanaha vidyadharyascha nanrutuhu apsarobhis samam tada. So different divine beings are described here. In general, we say devas, but devas also refers to a particular species of living beings, and they are manifest in Swargaloka. That's called in English we translate as heaven, but I don't know if heaven is a good translation for that. It is a state of existence which is full of sattva, much more sattva than is present on this earth. And so those divine beings, they have earned that sattva, that existence. So they exist there and they experience that sattva. So apart from the devas, there are also other divine beings whose names are Kinnara, Gandharva, Siddha, Charana, Vidyadhara, and Apsara. These are all different types of living beings at different levels. They're all not at the same level. They're all at different levels of existence and they do different kinds of activities. In that state of existence, they experience joy in different ways. So Gandharvas and Kinnaras, for example, they were singing at this time. When they knew that Sri Bhagavan, their ultimate authority, is going to come, they started singing. The Siddhas and Charanas, the Siddhas are people who are involved in some kind of deep meditation, contemplation. So they started reciting, they started doing stuti. Vidyadharas and Apsaras, along with Apsaras are female, divine personalities. So Vidyadharas and Apsaras started dancing with each other. There's so much happiness. There's a very party-like, a very celebratory kind of environment. Mumuchur munayo devaha sumanamsi mudanvitaha mandam mandam jaladhara jagarjur anusagaram. So the devas and the munis, the great thinkers, the philosophers, the sages, they showered flowers. Sumanamsi, sumanas means a flower. So Sumanamsi, flowers, they showered flowers. Mumuchuhu, they liberated, means they showered from the top. They showered flowers on Mathura, where Sri Bhagavan was going to appear. Mudanvitaha, they were so happy, covered with muda, means with happiness. Mandam mandam jaladharaha. Jaladharaha refers to a cloud, a rain cloud, a cloud which carries water which is going to rain. It's ready for raining. So it's also the monsoon season. We should remember when Sri Bhagavan appeared, it's the season that we are now going through. It's the monsoon season in the month of Bhadrapada. So mandam mandam jaladharaha, the rain clouds, uh, they in very gentle, very gentle tone, they rumbled, just like the ocean. Jagarjuhu Anusagaram. Anusagaram means Sagaram Iva, just like the ocean has a rumbling sound, right? The ocean has got a particular sound. And sometimes when we close our ear like this, or we hold some round object to the ear, we can hear that ocean sound. Or if you go to the ocean, obviously you can hear that sound. So ocean sound, the rumbling of the rain clouds, okay, they were not striking with lightning and thunder. Okay, that the sound of lightning and thunder is not so pleasant. Okay, it scares us. We get scared, especially if it hits nearby. But here now they were just rumbling. They were very cautious. They didn't want to make any unpleasant sounds. They were rumbling, and their sounds were just like that of the ocean, very soft and pleasing sound. निशीते तम उद्भूते जायमाने जनार्दने देवक्यां देवरूपिण्यां विष्णुः सर्वगुहाशयः आविरासीद् यथा प्राच्यां दिशीन्दुरिव पुष्कलः. So now in the 8th shloka of the 3rd chapter of the Dashama skandha of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Sri Bhagavan's manifestation is described. At Nishita Kala, Nishita means midnight or very close to midnight. So midnight is not necessarily what we call as 12 midnight. We call 12 o'clock in our watch. That is today's way of timing. So there is a convention in the Indian astronomy called Ardharatri. That is the time somewhere in between close to the midpoint of the sunset and the sunrise, one sunset and the next sunrise. So Ardharatri, that's called Nishita Kala. So in the intense darkness, Tama Udbhute, when darkness was quite intense, there were rain clouds everywhere. We just heard about rain clouds rumbling. Jayamane Janardane. Normally, that intense darkness is very distressing to people. Janardanaha. Janan Ardayati. One who troubles, one which gives distress to people is called Janardana. So this darkness was such that it was distressing to people. In that darkness, Sri Bhagavan appeared. Devakyam Devarupinyam, in Devaki or through Devaki, from Devaki, Devarupinyam, in one who is just like a Devi. She's a goddess. She's not an ordinary woman. She's actually divine natured and she appears like a goddess. She looks like a goddess. Vishnuhu Sarva Guhashayaha. So Vishnu, he is Sarva Guhashayaha, means he is present everywhere, but he is unseen. He is like in a cave. Okay, everywhere he is. So it's not like there's any place where he is not present. He is present everywhere, but he is like a person who is in a cave. When somebody is in a cave, you can't see them, right? So similarly, Vishnu, although present everywhere, he is like Guhashayaha, means he cannot be seen. He is invisible to us. Such a Vishnu, Avirasit, he manifested himself. And Yatha Dishi Induriva Pushkalaha, just like the moon appears in the eastern horizon. The moon emerges in the eastern horizon, the full moon arises from the eastern horizon with his complete aspects. All the 15 aspects or 16 aspects of the moon are fully visible in the full moon night, right? Yesterday was the full moon night, Purnima. So, Dishi, in Prachyam Dishi, in the eastern horizon, Induriva Pushkalaha. Similarly, Sri Bhagavan manifested himself in that prison house from the body of the divine natured Devaki with all his aspects at this point of time. So you can see how in the darkness, which is very distressful, he appeared there symbolically to say that now I will remove all your difficulties. I will dispel all this darkness with my radiance. So one more point to make here is that Sri Bhagavan's time of appearance, midnight, on the Ashtami Tithi, is also close, very close to the time at which the moon rises on the Krishna Paksha Ashtami. It's a Krishna Paksha. Krishna Paksha means when the moon is waning. Okay, that's called Krishna Paksha. When the moon is waxing, when the moon is becoming bigger and bigger as it appears to us, right? Then it's said to be Shukla Paksha. It becomes brighter and ends with Purnima. So yesterday was Purnima, and now Krishna Paksha has begun. So slowly, the 8th day of Krishna Paksha is called Ashtami. So from now, the 8th day, or in actually the next Saturday, it's I think the 7th day. It happens to be sometimes one Tithi misses in between. Will be the Ashtami Tithi, and on Ashtami Tithi, Sri Bhagavan appeared, and at that point, on Ashtami Tithi of Krishna Paksha, the moon rises. The moonrise happens at midnight, around midnight time. So you can think that the time that he actually came from Devaki, manifested outside from Devaki, was probably the same time or very close to the time that the moon actually came out of the horizon. Our moon came out of the horizon. And it's also interesting because it's the dynasty in which he appeared. He appears in the Soma Vamsha, right? He belongs to the Soma Vamsha. The Soma is the presiding deity of the moon, the body called the moon. There's a deity called Soma, Soma Deva. So he, uh, so Krishna appears in that dynasty. The Yadu Vamsha is part of the Soma Vamsha. It comes from Soma. So this connection with the moon and his birth time coinciding almost, very closely with, or probably exactly with the time at which the moonrise happened, is an interesting point here. Tam adbhutam balakam ambujekshanam chaturbhujam shankagadadyudayudham Srivatsalakshmam Galashobhikaustubham Pitambaram Sandrapayodasaubhagam. Now, in two shlokas, Sri Vyasdevji describes how Vasudeva saw him. So, first, Vasudeva's perception is given, and then Devaki's perception is given, how they reacted to it. So, first, how Vasudeva saw that child. Tam Adbhutam, a fascinating, wonderful, Balakam, child, Ambujekshanam, whose eyes were just like lotuses. Chaturbhujam, one who had four hands, Chaturbhujam. Shanka Gadadyudayudham. His four hands were endowed with the conch, Shanka, Gada means a mace, and so on. Gadadi, Gada Udayudham means raised weapons. They were holding raised weapons such as the conch, mace, and we also know Sudarshan Chakra. It's not mentioned here, but when you say etc., it includes that. Gada Adi. Gada Adi means etc. So Shanka, Gada, then Chakra, then Padma. That's the normal four things that he holds. But sometimes he also holds a sword, Khadga, and so on. So some weapons were in those four hands. And Udayudham means they were raised, they were raised weapons. He had raised them in that baby form. Then Srivatsa Lakshmam, Srivatsa Chinnam. Lakshmam means Chinnam, the symbol of Srivatsa. Srivatsa means it's a small mark of hair on his chest. He has three or four strands of hair on the chest, a small tuft of hair. Galashobhi Kaustubham, his neck was adorned by a beautiful jewel called Kaustubhamani. Galashobhi Kaustubham, very beautiful, very attractive jewel called Kaustuba was hanging from his neck. Pitambaram, he was dressed in a yellow garment. Pitambaram, his lower portion, the dhoti that he wears, is yellowish in color, golden yellow in color. Sandra Payoda Saubhagam means, Payodaha means rain cloud again. Payodaha, rain cloud. Sandra Payoda Saubhagam means his complexion was like that of a dense rain cloud. Okay, normally when we see paintings in the comics or we see on TV or somewhere, the color of Krishna is depicted as bluish color, right? But actually it's not blue as we think. It's not cobalt blue. It is a very dark blackish blue, or you can say bluish black. Very dark color with a blue tinge in it. And very dense. And in that, if there is a lightning behind, it's described if there is a lightning. Sometimes when we see a dark rain cloud, we see, flashes of lightning behind the cloud. At that point of time, the cloud is shining. There's a glow coming from the cloud, right? Bluish black glow coming from the cloud. So Sri Bhagavan's complexion is like that. So his complexion is that of a dense rain cloud. Sandra means dense. Dense rain cloud. Sandra Payoda Saubhagam. So Vasudeva saw this child. Now Vasudeva's description, or what he saw, the description goes forward. Maharha Vaidurya Kirita Kundala Tvisha Parishvakta Sahasra Kuntalam Uddama Kanchangada Kankanadibhir Virochamanam Vasudeva Aikshata. So it ends with Vasudeva Aikshata, means Vasudeva saw. So what else did he see? Maharha Vaidurya. Maharha means very awesome. Vaidurya Mani. Vaidurya Mani is another jewel, Vaidurya, a particular gem, a very deep colored gem. Vaidurya Kirita Kundala Tvisha. His Kirita, Vaidurya Kirita means his Kirita, the crown, was having this Vaidurya Mani on it. And Kundala was earrings. He has Makara Kundalam. His earrings are shaped like sharks or fishes, big fishes. So fish-shaped earrings. Tvisha means by the you can say glow. Twit means glow, right? By the glow of the crown and the earrings. Parishvakta Sahasra Kuntalam. His hair, Kuntalam means hair. His hair was drenched in the glow of the earrings and the crown. And the crown was adorned with the Vaidurya Mani, which was awesome. Maharha. Maharha Vaidurya Kirita Kundala Tvisha Parishvakta Sahasra Kuntalam. So it's a whole long one single word, Samasta Padam, which describes the hair of Bhagavan. That hair was drenched in the glow from these ornaments. And then more. Uddama Kanchangada Kankanadibihi Virochamanam. His body was glowing, just like his hair was glowing because of these ornaments. His body was glowing because of other ornaments. And they are Uddama Kanchangada Angada Kankanadibihi. So there was Uddama means many or numerous, abundant. Kanchangada, Kanchi means girdle. Kanchi we say is a girdle in English. Girdle refers to a kind of a belt which is worn around the waist. So he had a belt around his waist, and then numerous Angada. Angada means bracelets which are worn somewhere here in the forearm. And then in the lower arm, we wear bangles, Kankanadibi, Uddama Kanchangada Kankanadibi. So he had a girdle on his waist, and numerous bracelets and bangles were adorning his arms. And his body was shining, Virochamanam. So with all these things, there was a glow on his body, and Vasudeva saw the baby like this. So in two shlokas, it's described what he looked like when he appeared first. So you can see clearly that normal human baby or a baby of an animal doesn't appear like this, right? Normally what happens, what do we see when our baby is born? I remember when my child was born, I was called, I was in the nursing home, and suddenly a nurse came out from nowhere and she said, she called my name and said, please come. And then I went to where she called me, and there was another nurse standing there with a tray in her hand. I said, why is she bringing a tray here? And then I looked inside the tray and I saw a small toy-like thing, and that was my child. It looked like a small toy at that point of time, just this much in size, very, very small. I couldn't believe it's a human being. Of course, it didn't have any of these features, just had, I could only see the parts of the human body and nothing more. And I was wondering, is this my child? I mean, I didn't make any sense at that point of time. I'm just describing that moment. Later on, of course. So a human baby appears like this, or the baby of any other living being in this samsara comes like this. But when Sri Bhagavan comes, you see the distinction between him and us. He appears with his full manifestation. He appears like this. Of course, we have a lot more to hear about what happened after that. We are going there. Sa vismayotpulla vilochano harim sutam vilokyanakadundhubistada Krishnavatarotsava sambhramosprishan mudadvijebhyo yutamapluto gavam. So what was Vasudeva's reaction? I told you my reaction when I saw my child, but what was Vasudeva's reaction when he saw his child? And that too, this is his eighth child. Okay, the first six have been killed. They were like probably like my child. They just came out and they had nothing on them. And then the crying, they cried. And when they cried, then the guards went and told Kamsa. Kamsa came there and he killed them. And the seventh one was never born. As far as Vasudeva, Devaki, and Kamsa were concerned, it was a miscarriage. So the seventh one they never saw. And now the eighth one has come. And the eighth one, when Vasudeva saw that, his eyes opened in astonishment. He had never seen a baby like that. Okay, Vismayot Pulla Vilochanaha. Vismaya Utpullam means his astonishment, enormous amount of, imagine if you see a baby suddenly looking like that, a baby which has just been born appears with all these ornaments and shining body and bluish black color and lightning and this and that, what would you feel, right? So Vasudeva felt like that, and his eyes are now wide open in astonishment, and he understood that this is actually Vishnu himself. Harim, Sutam means he understood that Vishnu, Hari, has become my son. Okay. Vilokya Anakadundubihi means again the name Anakadundubi. You see his name Vasudeva as Anakadundubi is referred so many times in the Bhagavatam again and again, just to remind us that he himself is not an ordinary personality. When he was born also, Anakadundubi, the drums were sounded in the heavenly planets, right? So he is called Anakadundubi, that's why. And he saw this child and he knew this is Hari. And Krishnavatarotsava Sambramo, Krishnavatarotsava Sambramaha means immediately he realized now this is an avatar of Bhagavan that's happening. It's not just a human birth, an avatar has happened, and I am now an instrument in that avatar. I have been used as an instrument to bring about this avatar. And Sambramaha, he became hasty. For what? Utsava Sambramaha. Immediately he decided I have to celebrate. Immediately, on the spot. Okay, he didn't have to wait. Normally when we also, we feel joyous when we see the child is born. We may say yay and we make phone calls to relatives and something, some expression of delight is there. Now here, it's not an ordinary child being born, but Krishnavataraha. So imagine what kind of a thing. God has come to me as my child. God has come in my wife's womb and he has now appeared here. I can't believe this. My God, what is this? He's like, he's completely lost. In that Utsava Sambramaha, he wants to have a Utsav immediately. Sambramaha means hasty. You see, asprishan means without, without touching, aspiration without touching. What without touching? What we'll see that Muda Vijebhyo Ayutamapluto Gavam means in his mind, because he was in a prison house. If he was not in the prison house now, if he was in his own house, then what would he have done? The first thing he wanted to do was to give cows to the Brahmanas. Okay, those days, or in our culture, in our Sanskriti, not only in those days, today also, in our Sanskriti, one of the ways in which celebration is done is dana, giving dan. Okay, nowadays, how do we do it? We sit and wait for others to give us gifts, right? Or we bring a cake and we cut the cake and we blow out the candles. All this we have copied from the West. But that's not the way that our Samskriti teaches us to celebrate. Celebration means it begins with giving dan, means give in charity. When you feel happy, first share your happiness with others and then you shout. So first sharing happiness with others is by giving them what they may require, right? So give in dan. So one of the dans that is done is go dan to the Brahmanas or to other people who know how to take care of the go. So he wanted to do that. He would have done that if he was in his normal house, but now he was in a prison cell. So how could he do it? He could not do it. So he had to do it because that was the excitement. So how did he do it? Asprishan means without touching, means without physically giving the cow. In the mind he gave it, mentally donated. Muda means with great happiness. Aplutaha means he was drowned in happiness. He was completely drowned. He was not in control. He lost control. He was in ecstasy. He was drowned in ecstasy. In that state of being drowned in ecstasy and with great haste to celebrate, he mentally immediately donated 10,000 cows to the Brahmanas. Athai tadavadharya purusham param natanga kritadi kritanjalihi स्वरोचिषा भारतसूतिकागृहं virochayantam gatabhif prabhavavit. So then, after some time, he calmed down, he got his own composure, and he realized that he is standing not in front of an ordinary baby, but in front of Sri Bhagavan himself. And so, atha enam astautat, he started offering his stuti, astaut. Astaut means he offered stuti. So, we just heard about stuti in the last class, and now we see Vasudeva about to offer stuti. Avadharya Purusham Param, knowing that this is Vishnu, this is Parama Purusha who has come. Purusham Param, Parama Purusha has come. Natangaha, he bowed down. And Kritadihi means he fixed his mind in wisdom, in proper knowledge. His mind was in knowledge now. He started contemplating on Vishnu, his qualities, and himself as a small servant of Vishnu. Not as the father of this child, but as a servant of Vishnu, who has been blessed by with fatherhood of that person. Kritanjalihi means Anjali, folded hands, folded palms. Swarochisha Bharata Sutikagram. Bharata here is referring to Parikshit because this is Shuka Muni speaking to Parikshit. So he's addressing Parikshit as Bharata, means a descendant of Bharata dynasty. And Swarochisha Sutikagram, what it's all description of Vishnu. Vishnu who was illuminating the maternity. So this prison room has now become a maternity room. Sutikagraham means the maternity room. So he was actually illuminating. It's actually dense darkness. There's no lamp, right? It's also the rainy season, and we just heard that it was dense darkness when he appeared. So although it was dense darkness otherwise, because he appeared with his radiance, Swarochisha, with his own radiance or effulgence, Virochayantam, he was lighting up the room. And so Vasudeva became Gatabhihi, means all his fear was gone. Until then, he lived in fear of Kamsa. When will Kamsa come and kill my next child? He had seen 6 deaths and he had seen 1 miscarriage. So now, when will the next death happen? So with this anxiety he was living, but now Gatabhihi means there was no more any fear in his mind. All his fear was gone. And Prabhavavit. Why was he fearless? Because Prabhavavit. Prabhavam Veti. Veti means knows. One who knew Prabhav. He knew that this child which has come cannot be killed by Kamsa. It's impossible because it's Vishnu himself. And so he knew Vishnu's preeminent position, Prabhavaha, Prakrishtaha Bhavaha, his exalted existence. Vasudeva knew that, and therefore there was no fear. He became fearless. In the presence of God, one becomes fearless. That's the point being made here. When God is present in front of us or when God is in our mind, all fear goes away. So next class onwards, which will be on the shlokas, we'll continue next to next Sunday, because in the next class on Janmashtami night, we will talk about Bhagavan in general. We'll talk about his different activities, his leelas and so on. So we will hear about first Vasudeva's stuti, what kind of stuti Vasudeva did. And then we'll also hear about Devaki's stuti. Devaki also did stuti after Vasudeva finished. So together we'll hear both their stuti. Parents offered stuti to the baby, right? Normally we don't do that. Like I said, this is not an ordinary baby, therefore they offered stuti. And for today, we will ask this question. This is a very relevant question. What does it take to attract God to appear as one's own child? Okay, now we heard about how Vasudeva is feeling so joyous. He's so excited to have God as his own child. What does it take if we have to attract God to appear as our own child? Okay, at least for sake of discussion, we can discuss. It may not be our goal in life, but we learn from asking a question like this that first of all, we should be aware of God's existence. If a person says, I don't accept God at all, then there's no question of trying to attract God to appear as one's own child. So first, awareness that there is a universal being, of whom we are a part. That person exists and he has got wonderful qualities, and his intentions and his activities are also very wonderful. And then cultivating those divine qualities which are present in God within oneself, aspiring to cultivate that qualities within oneself. And that is essentially this purity in our thought, word, and deed. What we think about, what we speak, and what we do should be 100% pure and genuine. There should be no kapata, there should be no duplicity. It should be completely genuine. And there should be selflessness in whatever we do, in our intentions. What we want to do, let us do it in a way that benefits everybody. It's not for only my benefit. Okay, in the process, I also will get benefit. So selfishness is a side effect of being selfless, not the main thing. Or sometimes selflessness is thought of as a side effect of being selfish. That's the Adam Grant theory of economics, right? It says that because everybody is selfish, everybody tries to maximize their own returns. And as a result, the whole world benefits. So selflessness comes out of selfishness. But here, the theory is opposite. It says selflessness should be the main intention. People should work in a way that is selfless, thinking that whatever I do should benefit others, and I should do it in a way that it benefits others, makes others, better, makes others' life better, improves their well-being. And in the process, there is selfishness also, in the sense that as a side effect, we also benefit. We also get returns from that. So whatever selfishness I have, may it happen only through selflessness, that thinking. And that involves sacrifice, letting go of things which we are attached to, letting go of small petty things, and sometimes even big things, saying that this, if there is a higher cause in this, let me leave this, let it go. Doesn't matter. I don't need it because I want something much higher. So, and this comes when there is sincerity in all aspects of our life. So, if we have these qualities, then God will be attracted himself to come to us. It is not that, initially we are attracted to God when we hear about his qualities and so on. And when we are attracted to God and we feel inspired that we should be like him, and our whole life transforms because of that inspiration, eventually it reaches a point when God himself becomes attracted to us and he wants to come as our child or whatever, as our friend. Like in the case of Arjuna, he was not Arjuna's child, but he was his best friend, right? Or with somebody else, he is something else, but he relates with us. He wants to come to us. Just like in the case of Hanuman, Hanuman was living in a forest and Rama and Lakshmana came searching for him, right? They came and found him. So, and they engaged him in their service. So in this way, God comes to us when we are sincere, when we are pure, and when we are ready for his service. So with these thoughts, I will stop for today. I will now unmute you all, and I'll be very happy to hear your thoughts, your comments, your questions, etc. Yes, are you all unmuted now? Ashita, yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, good evening.
Sir, is it through purity in thought, word, and deed that we cultivate divine qualities within ourselves?
Yes, correct. That's true. That's the most important thing. Actually, all spiritual life begins from there. Normally, how do we understand spiritual life in general when we look at the way the general public talks about spirituality? What do we read? We read about calming the mind, right? Going to a very clean resort, spiritual, doing yogasana, doing pranayama, because the mind becomes calm, free from anxiety. Now, that's a very surface level understanding of spirituality. That's an effect of spirituality. Calming the mind and becoming, peaceful is a effect of, it's a side effect or an outcome. But that is not the core of spirituality. Core of spirituality is cultivating purity inside by consciously endeavoring to give up negative thoughts, consciously saying that I will not think ill of somebody, consciously saying that whatever jealousy I feel because of some reason, when somebody gets something, I feel jealous. When somebody feels success, like for example, in the academic world, I see a colleague of mine has published a paper in a very high ranked journal, and now everybody is praising that person. Everybody thinks good about it. That person is also going to get a monetary incentive from the institute. And my heart is filled with jealousy. I have to now make some comments. So I go to another colleague and say, अरे वो मैं जानता हूँ उसने कैसे पेपर लिखा है, उसने ये किया होगा, वो किया होगा, मैं जानता हूँ, I know how he writes paper. This fellow is like that only. So I want to, take out that jealousy by talking ill about that guy, this guy, and so on. So this tendency in us to feel unhappy when somebody succeeds and to feel happy when somebody else fails. Somebody's paper got rejected. I'm so happy. It feels so good. I want to tell everybody uska reject ho gaya. So this tendency in us, this is what actually kills us. This is our greatest enemy. And so consciously, it doesn't go away. We have to consciously send it away. We have to consciously work on our mind. When we sit for meditation, we begin meditation like this, thinking that let there be happiness for everyone. Let others succeed in whatever they want to do. Let them be content. Let them feel good. Okay. And in the process, I will also be sincere. I'll also try to do good work. But let everybody be happy. Let's not only for me, let everybody get what they have in their mind. That kind of thing. This is Indian thinking. This is Samskriti, Bharatiya Samskriti. So this is meaning of purity, and this is where spirituality begins. Spirituality begins like this. Without this, there is no spirituality. And outcome of this is that peace of mind, calmness of mind, and so on. Yes. A long answer
Thank you,
for
sir.
your short question. Yes. Others in the audience?
Sir, I have a grammatical question. Like there is Stuti and there is Stotram also. And Shiva Ashtakam, Stutam is also, Ashtakam is also there. So I'm just trying to understand Stotram and Stuti, both should be different, sir. Like,
Stotram refers to specific verse. Stotram means a particular verse or a collection of verses is called a stotram. But stuti is the general concept of praising or glorification. In general, the word stuti means praise or glorification. It need not always be in the verse form. It could be in the text prose form also. It could be in any other form too. And here we are talking about stuti of God, not stuti of anybody in general. So that's the difference between stuti and stotram.
yes, sir. Yes. So is the Ashtakam is also different, sir? Like Tulsidas ji wrote Shiva Ashtakam.
Ashtakam means a collection of 8 verses. Ashta. When there are 8 verses in one stotram, it's called Ashtakam.
Okay, sir. Yeah, I had this grammatical question.
Yeah. Yes, anyone else? Sarthak is not here today. Okay, I hope that you all had a good experience listening to these shlokas. We will meet again on Janmashtami evening, that is 16th evening, and we will hear more about Krishna, his qualities, and so on. And then in the subsequent class, that is on, I think, 24th of August, we will listen to the next shlokas in the same chapter. With this, I will stop today. Please feel free to connect with me on any other day too, not only in this class, but on any other day too. Thank you. And now we will do the Antya Mangalam. Please chant the Hare Krishna mantra along with me. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobhramanebhyo Shubhamastu Nityam Lokas Samastas Sukhino Bhavantu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. धन्यवादाः. नमस्कारः.